Hey, everybody, welcome. Okay, it's our monthly live. I cannot believe it's already been a month. Insane. Life is cruising by. So, welcome to October's live Q&A. I have a few topics planned for today. So, I'm going to talk about those topics in just a second. Just making sure everybody is coming in. I see there's a few people. Give me a hey if you're there. Hey, everybody. Hey, Andres. Uh, let's see who else. Hey, Eric. How are you? Oasis. Okay, so people are coming in, I think, here. Hey, Quanili. Hopefully, I'm not butchering your name. Okay, so hopefully everybody can hear me. And I think we've got people coming in now, so I can get started. Hey, Ramzan, Heidi, what's happening? Okay, Rodrigo, good. Everybody's coming in. Everybody's good. Okay, get your questions ready because I'm going to be answering questions in just a few minutes. But this is October, and I also want to stick to some themes here briefly. And it's ADHD Awareness Month. So, one focus that I wanted to bring to you today is about porn and how porn can induce the ADHD brain pattern. So, what I mean by that is if you have struggle with focus, if you find that you're distracted, although brain fog is a little different, if you struggle with brain fog, we're going to talk about that a little bit. Intrusive thoughts, Muhammad, that's a good discussion too. You're welcome, DC. I'm glad you're here, my friend. Intrusive thoughts tends to be from a fast brain pattern. So let me just start by kind of talking about two things, and then we'll dig into the questions. And I'm going to give you some updates too. You'll notice I'm alone today. There's no Jamie. So I'm going to share what she's doing and some updates in our company. Okay, so porn-induced ADHD. And I promise I won't wax poetic for too long. We'll get to the questions. But the idea is when you consume porn, we know that it quote unquote damages your brain. And what I mean by that is that it decreases functioning in the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is the area of your brain that you use for focus, for attention, for being able to use executive function, which is small steps towards a larger project. So it's really, really, really important for you to be able to think. At the same time, it's the area of your brain that when it's running well, it helps you to socialize. So when it's not running well, you have social anxiety. And I know so many people who consume pornography also have social anxiety. So it makes it more difficult for them to meet and attract a partner. So at the same time, we know that it's desensitizing the reward center in your brain. And we know, here's something I want you to know is that people with ADHD, organically speaking, and I'm going to tell you what that is in a second, they actually have a stronger pull towards porn. So if you've been diagnosed with ADHD, porn will be more stimulating to you because of the way that your brain was running from birth. So basically, ADHD is a slower processing brain. And that's what makes it difficult to pay attention and to not become distracted because the distractions are stimulating to a slower processing brain. So the idea is if your brain's running slower, you need to find a way to stimulate it. Enter intrusive thoughts, like Mohammed was saying, is that we know more times than not, the anxiety brain pattern exists alongside the ADHD brain pattern. So now your brain will stimulate itself with intrusive thoughts and anxiety. And clearly, that's the pendulum brain, or what I've been calling strained brain, meaning your brain is getting further and further away from the optimal brain pattern. So, number one, you have to leave porn behind because when you do, it's going to bring your brain back towards the middle and you're going to feel great and you're going to be able to think better. I get emails all the time from people saying that they didn't really believe me, but now they do, how much better they feel and how much clearer they think. So it's ADHD Awareness Month. I'm going to put a bow on this and we'll go to questions. Is that if you struggle with attention, if you're not doing your best work, if this has happened from the time that you found porn, or if it's been really exacerbated, in those high school years, maybe moving into college, porn is making it worse. So it's another reason to leave the screen behind. Okay, let's dig in for a second and then in questions, and then we'll go back to topic number two that came to my uh, to my to my brain or my mind yesterday. Hey, Vesna, how you doing? Okay, so let's see. What is this? Oh, well, simple sync. I'm going to put your question up and I'm going to tell you. So, your mind's asking for an objective, ethical reason. So, here I don't really talk about moral judgment. Even though I told you how I've written my book, it's been written for a while. And I have a literary agent who's been getting it in front of publishers. And what the publisher's feedback has been is that it's too moral, which I thought was really interesting because I try not to. I don't, it's not even in my mind about the morality of it. But what I talk about is shame. So if you want to anchor into something ethical and moral, from my standpoint, is that shame is at the core of a porn habit. And we know that the more you consume it, the more shame you have, and it will make you feel worse about it. So it's going to impact your moral standpoint, regardless of what I think about it. And what I think about it is that it is damaging your brain. But I'm going to tell you one thing and we're going to move on, is that if you want moral objections, then check out Fight the New Drug. They are a nonprofit organization that talks about human trafficking, sex trafficking on their social media. I usually share, it's actually the only other organization that I share their posts. They share a lot of posts of kind of all the bad stuff that happens behind the scenes in porn, and it'll get you on board with the moral and ethical aspects of it. Okay, so I'm going to put up Siddhartha's question here about PIED and excessive masturbation. For years, had many focus problems, energy problems. Now I stopped for 4 months. Now I have full energy, but still having low libido. What to do now? Low libido basically is, a flat line, as we call it in the business. And what it means is that your brain is still rewiring itself back towards healthy arousal. So if you had PIED, what it means is that your brain was in a very hypo aroused state, which happens after tons of hyper arousal from porn and masturbation. Basically, you desensitize the reward center, you kind of fry your brain, and it shifts into this hypo aroused mode. And time and training will bring it back to the healthy arousal mode. And I offer a short course that teaches you how to use. I don't know if I can multitask here. I've been doing my own things. I'm going to put up a page. I'm going to tell you what Jamie's doing. It's exciting, but I'm going to put up a page. I offer a course called Brain Training 101. It's $49, so it's very affordable, but it teaches you how you can train your brain back. Let me find my tab, your brain back to the healthy arousal mode. Because if you're having difficulty still after X amount of time, right now it's been 4 months, if you still have difficulty with libido in 6 months, 9 months, what it means is that your brain has unwired from the PIED and the PMO brain pattern, but it hasn't rewired fully to the optimal healthy arousal pattern. And brain training will help you do that. And in that short program, I teach you how to do it. Okay, so let's see here. Let's see. Oh, Sornell, thank you. I'm so glad you're here. Let's see. Yeah, Vesna, I'm glad you're here too, my friend. King has a question. Does masturbation cause stunted growth? So let me tell you, from my standpoint, and we're not going to talk too much about growth. We're going to go back to your brain, because all people basically lose sight that your brain is the supercomputer that's running every single process in your body. So hopefully we can agree upon that. It's your central nervous system. What's running your central nervous system is your brain. We know that porn and masturbation changes the way that your brain performs, which then ultimately changes the way that neurotransmitters cascade, that hormones are used, that nerves will fire into the peripheral nervous system. So when you change your brain pattern and it becomes dysfunctional, then all the other functions and processes in your body can be impacted. And we know that. So the answer is yes. Does it happen often? I don't know about that, but it definitely can change the way that all the other functions in your body do function. They become dysfunctional. So that's why I want people to get a handle on compulsive masturbation. So that would be someone or you or anybody who is, wrapped up in a compulsive masturbation habit where you have to go back to it frequently. Okay, let's see what we have here. 58 days in to the 90-day and starting to really struggle, getting colder in the UK. Those shiny puffer coats, October hauls. I don't know if it's you that I talked with or I got an email. Thank you for bringing up this question in terms of fetishes, because someone was sent me an email saying that women shouldn't wear shiny puffer coats. And if you have a strong fetish for that, that's because you linked sexual arousal to those puffer coats. And it's not that inherently those puffer coats are sexual. So that can make for a bigger challenge for you. And that's how all quote unquote fetishes work, because your arousal template has changed towards them. So there's strategies that you can use to kind of unlink that fetish. And especially if you stay away from letting those dopamine hits hit your brain when you see someone wearing that type of coat, you want to redirect to something else 10,000 times, unfortunately, because that's how brains rewire. You have to do it a lot and kind of trick your brain or brain hack your brain into associating the dopamine with something healthy. And I have a couple videos on this channel talking about how to redirect your brain towards healthy dopamine. So hopefully that helps you, but it's challenging when a challenge comes up. You know what I say? It's win or learn. So right now you have to learn how to unlink that. And the way to do it is to not allow the dopamine flow when you see it. Let's see. Okay, IY. Hey, IY, how are you? Very new to the channel. Well, welcome, because I'm here trying to help people. Your brain's been damaged by porn a lot already. I'm sorry to hear that. So it must be that you are struggling. I just wish I can learn to exercise discipline. What is the best way to start the process? I know this might sound like I'm being self-flagellating, but I promise you I'm not. Discipline is difficult for a brain that's really in a dysfunctional state. So the number one thing that needs to happen is you need to bring your brain back into as close to the functional optimal state as possible so that you can double down on discipline. The easiest way to do that is using state of the art technology. And it's the Muse headband, which Mark has a question about. I'll answer that in a second. I teach you how to use it in that Brain Training 101 link that I just put up. So if you're interested, go there and learn how to train your brain. Get the Brain Training headband, the Muse headband. Make sure you get it off my website. You get the best pricing and the best customer service. So make sure you get it there. And then you start training your brain. And once your brain comes out of that really hyper aroused mode, then you can exercise discipline. And discipline is the key. White knuckling it and willpower will only get you so far. And that goes back to, October Hall's question also. It's like, how do I get through when there's shiny things trying to distract me? It's discipline that does it. Knowing what you need to do and establishing that as your foundation and not letting it go. So the best way to start is start training your brain. And then secondarily, start with a morning routine and an evening routine, some anchoring events in your day to get your brain ready for the day and to ease your brain out of the day. And I've made some videos on this channel also about that, but that's a good way to start kind of easing your brain in. And if you take that program, Brain Training 101, I teach you a lot of other things. Okay. So Mark Milner, hey, what's going on? Muse headband, does it help bring your mind back to being healthy? It indeed does. And if you know this about me, I don't make the Muse, nor do I sell the Muse. I advocate for people to use the Muse headband. And I do have a link on my website that helps you get good pricing, the best pricing. But I do it because I don't have mine next to me right now. I use my Muse headband just about every day. I also use professional higher level neurofeedback, which uses different software with that Muse headband. But the Muse headband is such a good way to start optimizing your brain. And that program teaches you how. It's using state of the art tech instead of just using your distorted mind to try to rewire your mind. Instead of doing that, you're using the highest technology, and that's the power behind it, and that's why I use it. uh Black white, my do I believe in God? I in fact do believe in God, which I keep it out of the conversations here. But what I believe in even more, is it good to rewire your brain, is spirituality. Whatever that looks like for a given person. I'm a very open-minded person in terms of spirituality, but I don't believe I created myself, and I believe in divinity, and I believe I am tapped into a greater good and a collective consciousness, if you will, where I'm connected to all other people and I want good things for humanity. So whenever you tap into those feelings and you connect in that way, it's only good for rewiring your brain. What neuroscience shows about prayer is astounding, that when you pray, it shifts your brain into that healthy mode if prayer is salient to you. So if you're a person who likes to pray, pray. It's very good for rewiring your brain. If it doesn't feel good to you, find a practice that helps you to connect to things bigger than you. And that's what's important, because when you think you have to solve every single problem yourself, that's very egocentric. Ego is basically you're tapping into survival mode. You have to do it all yourself. I have to survive, and I'm the only one who can do it. When you connect to divinity or whatever you want to call it, then it's like, okay, I don't have to do every single thing by myself. I don't have to survive all the time. I can be part of the world and help everybody to thrive. So to me, that's the most important point. Okay, so let's see what else we got going here. I'm just kind of scrolling down. Yes, getting back to the true self, Vesna. That's absolutely true. And that is what I talk about, is that, if you're wrapped up in worldly things, those are egoic things. If you try to tap into gratitude, and if you care more about what you give than what you get, life becomes a lot more beautiful. So that's really, really important. Okay, how to overcome boredom and control urges. Gain City, hey, what's going on? Okay, I've been thinking about this one too, because I talk about porn as primarily a stress relief, and then also relieving boredom. And here's the big thing that I've been thinking about lately is, it's only boredom because your brain is so overstimulated. So in today's day and age, we're always giving our brains something to do. So teaching your brain to be chill, not doing anything, is the best way that you can overcome boredom in the long run. That will be challenging in the short run. So I will give you a strategy in the short run, but just recognize being bored is good. When my kids were little, I would, make them turn everything off and make them sit around. And they're like, I'm bored. And I'm like, awesome, because that's exactly what I wanted. And then guess what comes out of that boredom? Creativity. In today's day and age, we're always taking in passive content on our phones, on our screens, passively consuming other people's stuff. And if you're constantly doing that, there's no room for creativity, and there's no room for your brain to just be. So the reason you have urges is because your overstimulated brain wants to stay overstimulated. So the solution is to back that brain pattern out and change it so that it's no longer overstimulated. It's perfectly stimulated. It's calm and focused, and it's more chill. But that is a really good question. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Okay, so let's see what else we got here. Uh, Someone wants to know about my degrees. So I will tell you, yeah. And I actually think it's perfect, and some people don't like my background and my credentials. So I want to take the opportunity to talk about it. I started as a speech language pathologist. Actually, I started as a preschool teacher. So back in the day, I taught preschool. Um, and hopefully you can follow my logic on this, but I started as a preschool teacher, and I in in a special school for kids with communicative and cognitive challenges, kids with not only language delays, but developmental delays of all kinds. Hopefully you see where I'm going here. So my first degree is in speech language pathology. Then I went back and I earned a PhD in communicative disorders and sciences. So still kind of extending communication, which is very important for all of this, and interactional style, but also cognition. So at that time, I also earned a PhD track. And so I didn't have to do two dissertations. That's kind of the distinction. I also have a track certification in cognitive science. So the science of thinking and brain performance. So that's kind of when I got into brain stuff, when I got my, it's basically a PhD and a half is what I call it. And at that time, then I started teaching neuroscience classes. And since that time, I have been studying and using different types of neurotherapies. So in my practice in neuro, I have a clinic with my husband. He basically runs it still. It's called Leigh Brain and Spine. It's a brick and mortar clinic where we offer neurofeedback, brain training. But I became certified. I have many, many different certifications on top of, I have two master's degrees. One's in educational leadership. I have a PhD and a half. So long story short, what happened was then I got into porn addiction and sex addiction. So I am certified as a sex addiction coach. And that's important. I actually let all my licenses go so that I can work with people and not be confusing what my credentials are. So, of course, I earned those degrees, but then I trained under some of the best sex addiction therapists in the world. And that's kind of how I got into this. But it's perfect because I focused on communication and the breakdown of communication. I focused on brain performance and the challenges neurodevelopmentally. So, whether you realize it or not, what porn addiction does and sex addiction, what it does is it stunts neurodevelopment. And so when porn addiction fell in my lap, and it fell in my lap personally, what happened is I'm like, I know all my degrees and certifications add up to, I know how to help people. So I had to help people in my own life. And then I became certified and now I help people. So I actually have, and that was, about, I think more than 5 years ago that I completed my certification in sex addiction, but basically I've been training my whole life. So those are my credentials. Okay, so anchoring routines. Let's talk a little bit more about anchoring routines. Just one more thing about my credentials. They're all listed on the About page on my website. So if you go over to Dr. Trish Leigh, those credentials are listed there. Okay, so anchoring routines, I think they could be useful. Yeah, definitely. So let me go back to, what you can do to overcome urges. Anchoring routines are really important. So I talk about offense and defense. So offense are the routines you're going to put in place to keep you well in that foundation. Defense is if you're struggling, you need to know what you're going to do to get yourself into a different place. And so a pivot plan is one thing that I talk about where if you feel an urge or a craving, neuroscience shows that you have 3 seconds of that dopamine drip before your brain is going to follow it to what I call the dopamine deluge, the flood of dopamine. 3 seconds isn't enough time to make a decision. So you need a plan. So you need a plan of how you're going to give your brain healthy dopamine from your life in the moments where you have an urge. And I just use basketball as an example. Basketball is something that I love to do. I have a basketball hoop or net in my backyard. I smoke my dog Chewbacca most times, no opposable thumbs. So I'll do that as a break in my workday so that I can get the juices flowing, get all the good neurotransmitters, basically puts all the good stuff into the system, pushes the stress hormones out. So that can be a way that you could avoid something triggering if you sit down at your computer, and many times that's a triggering environment, physical and mental. So instead you pivot out of it and you go play basketball for a couple of minutes. You change your physical and mental space. And you can't always get up and play basketball. So having a more internalized way, and I do have some videos on this channel. One of them is by making your screen your lock screen a picture of something important to you, your family, your dog, your favorite vacation. That's going to give you dopamine and serotonin when you look at it, and it might help you to pivot out of an urge. So that's a strategy that you can use in that very moment. Okay, so going down. Oh, thanks, Mac Mafia. Thank you for your contribution. I really appreciate that. And just so you know, I've created a nonprofit organization called Porn Brain Prevention. When we receive donations, I like to move that money forward into the nonprofit, and I'm doing some exciting things with it. I've just had some meetings to um, get the digital content that I've been wanting to get out for a long time. This is the first step. The two first things I'm doing with the money is to hire someone to run the nonprofit to raise more money. And I've been doing some paperwork and things like that in the background to get some cool stuff going. And the second thing is I'm teaming up with an organization that's going to make digital content to get in front of teens as awareness and prevention, and also church leaders, doctors, urologists in particular, therapists who don't know about the dangers of porn. A short digital kind of talk about overstimulating, going back to having, some stimulating content in it so people can watch it. Leaders or teens and parents, and this way we can help go upstream. So thank you. I totally appreciate that. We'll make sure that that donation goes upstream. Yeah, Chewbacca is waiting for a rematch. That man's always ready to go. Okay, so let's see. I'm reading. Okay, so let's go here. When I relapse, I still feel leak one up. When I relapse, I still feel normal. It's like a numb feeling, but before I could feel my energy drop when I relapsed, is that drain brain that you talk about in your recent video. So, drain brain really more is like, it's not a feeling of normal. In extremes, what drain brain feels like is depression and suicidal ideation. That's in a big extreme. What a smaller way that that would show up for you would be like general malaise, just like your get up and go, got up and went. When your brain gets stuck in drain brain, it's in that hypoarousal state where nothing is arousing to you. And if you get really low in that state, life is not arousing to you anymore. And it's because your brain needs such high levels of arousal to even feel engaged. And so that's the problem. And of course, where the problem is, the solution is also. So, like, the idea is if you're stuck in hypoarousal, so that numb feeling is the beginning of hypoarousal. And if you just think about it again logically, if you're stressed out and you're used to overstimulation, your brain wants more of it. We know dopamine is the molecule of more motivation back to more pleasure. So, like, you're caught in this loop of just needing massive amounts of stimulation. And so, what it also does to you is makes you feel numb in the moment. It brings you down from that hyper arousal. But the more you do it, the more you get stuck. So drain brain is like general malaise, you don't feel good, you lack motivation, and in real extremes, depression and suicidal ideation. Strained brain is the feeling of going back and forth, but drain brain will be that energy drop also. Vesna, thank you. Super sticker. Thanks for the donation. I totally appreciate it. I really do. I'm going up here. Is a short-term memory problem related to porn? Short-term and long-term memory problems are definitely related to porn. If you are consuming porn, that is the first thing. If you take it out of the mix, it's the first variable that you can check the box off. Take it out of the mix, most people's memory improves. One other thing about that is in the QEEG brain map that I perform, and we'll see if I can multitask to put the link in. It's the first step if someone wants to work with me personally. There are markers that I can see that show that your brain has basically lost power and has slowed down significantly, that it would give you memory problems. So that's something I can see in a brain map too. Yeah, that's so if you are up for it, that brain training, I'm still reading your other comments. That brain training link that I put up would be really good for you, because first of all, you got to come out of the screen. Secondly, you have to train your brain back to optimal. It's just the way that I go, that way that it goes. Okay, so Rick M, hey, how's it going? Doing no fap strictly, but I get romantic fantasy and I get aroused because of that. Does it hamper my rehab journey? This is a really good question on, like, if I'm sticking to stay in the course and I'm doing everything I need to, but then I have some fantasy. Fantasy is the number one thing that takes people out and moves people backwards. Is it hampering your journey in particular? Let's think about that. So, the idea is that if you are in fantasy a little, every time you're in it, it's either what you do with your mind and your body either is moving you forward toward your goal or moving you backwards. Fantasy is going to move you backwards. Now, depending upon what romantic fantasy means, I'm going to scroll down because I don't know if you want to kind of elaborate on that. And I see you wrote it again, but if romantic fantasy, like if it's kind of like foreplay fantasy towards being with a partner, but if you're in monk mode, I doubt that's the case. So monk mode means you don't engage in sexuality at all. What I want people to do is train their brains to go towards healthy sexuality, relational connection with a partner. So, like, I don't even really want people to be in monk mode for too long because most people want a partner and want to have healthy sexuality with a partner. So, that's the way that I want people to be able to go. And then if you're using romantic fantasy to pull you towards your partner, that's a good thing. But any other fantasy is going to move you backwards inch by inch. It's not like you reset back to the beginning. That's a question I get a lot, but it will inch by inch move you backwards. So again, it's win or learn. So, like, if you're not able to adios fantasy altogether, you have to figure out, like, when are the moments in your day when you find yourself fantasizing. Fantasy is a call for mood regulation. Your brain goes to fantasy, it usually is like, I'm done thinking for a little while. I want to come out of hyper arousal, too much overstimulation, too much overdrive. Fantasy helps to shift it back down so it can feel better for a little while. So instead of going to fantasy, get your booty out of your chair and do some push ups or go for a walk or go play basketball with Chewbacca in the backyard. You will most likely beat him. So, those are even though he does play Mean D and he tries to bite the ball all the time. Okay, so 3 days. So if it's romantic fantasy towards your girlfriend, yeah, like, but you want to follow through on that fantasy, not sit around in that fantasy because then you're objectifying your girlfriend. The idea is you use it to move you towards your partner. Well, black, white, I just kind of answered that question about monk mode. I don't think people should be in monk mode for years. I don't think that's good for them. Uh, when you work on yourself, part of yourself is being a rounded out individual, which for adults, it's evolutionary to want to procreate with a partner. And then, of course, then it's become something for pleasure and enjoyment, which a lot of people in when it comes to porn get stuck in pleasure and less so in enjoyment. So, this way, while you work on yourself, you are also working on yourself within a healthy sexual relationship. So I don't really want that for people. I want you to maybe be in monk mode for enough time to help unwire your brain and rewire it back towards the healthy mode for healthy sexuality. But then you can get in a relationship with an emotionally healthy partner and get your groove on. You know what I mean? Okay, so let us see. It's day 84 for Noor Safe. 84 days in a row without porn for me now. Congratulations. Very good. The issue is that I seldom had any urges during that period, and I'm not confident at all in my ability to handle urges when they inevitably strike. Well, 84 days later, I would encourage you that urges don't have to strike if you've been doing a lot of the right stuff. I've had this experience with many people in my program where they're doing the program, and because they're doing so many of the right things, the urges and cravings don't hit because they unwire and rewire their brain simultaneously. If you rewire your brain to the healthy arousal mode, then there's no need for urges. Remember, I told you an urge or a craving is a call for mood regulation. But if you learn to regulate your mood in many healthy ways, then you may not have an urge. So, hear this, you may not have urges and cravings, but I think it's wise to have a pivot plan, anyways, in case an urge hits, you know what you're going to do to give your brain dopamine and serotonin in a healthy way from your life. And that's what you need to do. And when you figure that out, if an urge hits, you're going to play basketball, you're going to go for a run, you're going to read a book, you're going to call your bestie. These are all things that are dopamine producing. You're going to have some dark chocolate. You're going to cook yourself a beautiful pesto chicken pasta meal. You know, food's very dopamine producing. Cooking can be a good executive function project. You know the things you're going to do and you go do it. You're going to listen to your favorite chill playlist if it's the middle of the night and an urge hits. Get that playlist going. Get Pachelbel's Canon in it. It's an amazing song that will chill your nervous system out. So have a plan, but just know you may never need your emergency plan, which would be a really beautiful thing. Zach, 46 days in a row. You're welcome, my friend. I'm glad to be able to help you. Yosef, thank you. Thanks for joining us here. I'm glad that you're getting the help that you need, my friend. Let's see. I'm looking because we're going to wrap up by 2:15. So let's see. I'm trying to get a good question here. So let's see. I'm scrolling back up to the beginning. Okay, so is there Andres, if you're here still, is there a relationship between sexual addiction and slow cognitive processing or slow cognitive tempo? The answer is 100% yes. So, sex addiction, like I just told you, this is a beautiful segue. So, thank you. Good segue back to our theme of ADHD. So, I told you that sex addiction and porn addiction damages the frontal lobe. What I mean by that, and this also goes to the question of my credentials, what I mean by that is that it slows down processing speed. So the speed of calm focus is in the middle. It's called alpha and low beta. It's around 12 to 15 hertz. Low beta is actually for focus, alpha is for calm. So when your brain's working optimally, it's humming along at 12 to 15 hertz. When you consume pornography or if you have a sex addiction and you're acting out, that acting out is flooding your brain with dopamine, and that dopamine is slowing it down. So it's going to act more like theta, which is 5 to 7 hertz, slow processing speed. That is the damage. And so when you slow your brain down, then you're not able to think and to process at the speed of 12 to 15 hertz anymore. And a lot of people feel that. They just don't understand that you're literally slowing down the electrical energy frequency in your brain. That's what I can see in the brain map that I offer. You can see that also if you're interested in that brain training program. You can see that using the Muse headband at a very simplistic way. And I teach you how to look for that in that program. But the answer is yes. And that's why I want people to know, like, you're damaging your frontal lobe and creating a lot of your problems, and you don't even know it. That's why I want people to know the link here. Okay, yeah, it is one of the hardest. I would say it's the hardest problem for men. Sornell, thank you for the lovely comment. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Okay, I'm cruising down here. Okay, here's a good question from Dickie Mo. I just found out about OCD and all those years, the same thoughts and voices. I finally understand why. Porn was a big part of my life. Someone with OCD should never have negative stimulus in their life. So OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. It is a dysfunctional brain pattern. And yes, you definitely can have OCD before you're consuming porn. But again, if you found porn when you were young, it changed the way that your brain performed in adolescence. So basically, it impacted your neurodevelopment. And that goes back to ADHD. It's a neurodevelopmental disorder. OCD is not a neurodevelopmental disorder, but if you found porn when you were young, it disrupted development. This is what I've been thinking about my whole professional career, is how brains work and what impacts brain performance, and then how it plays out in the behaviors of our mind and body. This is my mission here. So, like, yeah, if you're giving yourself a stimulus that is feeding that overstimulation, OCD is an overstimulated brain. So, the obsessive thoughts come out of all of that hot, fast energy, high beta. High beta is over 30 hertz, very, very, very fast electrical energy. So, out of those obsessive thoughts come compulsive behaviors to soothe that fast, hot nervous system, that brain on fire. And so, those compulsive behaviors, they tend to be creative in nature out of theta. Your brain starts running slower too because it's wired and tired. And so you have obsessive thoughts and compulsive behaviors to try to douse them. And it creates a very disruptive negative feedback loop. And it can really impact your life. And porn will absolutely make it worse. And so when you back yourself out of a porn habit, your OCD should improve. And nowadays, there's something called health OCD that a lot of people struggle with. Their brains are on fire and they're running slow from porn, but they're not linking it back to porn. And then they have all these mental and physical problems like erectile dysfunction or just general malaise or anxiety, depression, and they can't link it to anything. And so they have a lot of anxiety and OCD about their health. And then the obsessive thoughts about their health leads them to compulsively check health things. So that's something that's happening to people. And, it's bad news. And a lot of it is coming out of porn. Mark Milner, does exercise help with changing your brain pattern? That's a resounding yes. That's why I'm always talking about exercise. I got my new boxing bag. It comes with punch trackers. I was firing them up yesterday. I only had a little time, but I was actually using my new boxing bag. I work out in some sense every single day, even if it's my daughter rides horses, so I had to take her to the barn. She's gone to the barn. This will be the third night in a row. She made this equestrian team, which is really cool. So I try to support my kids in their passions, even though it means driving them a lot. She's my last one, 4 years. I'll be done with this. Anyways, I brought running clothes and I went for a run at the barn. And it was like out of DEF CON, and I was doing some push-ups in a field. It did cross my mind that there might be snakes in that field. So I did skedaddle after that thought entered. But, getting exercise in every day. And just to be clear about what exercise is, there's movement and then there's exercise. I take a walk in the morning most days. The hubs and I will take Chewbacca for a walk. That's movement, getting some early movement in. I try to get an evening walk in, movement. But then I will follow the boxing app and do a boxing workout. I follow other apps and I use weights. So, trying to move your body towards quote unquote exhaustion is really important to flood your brain with all the healthy neurotransmitters and hormones and to move all the stressy ones out. So, yes, get out there, move your body, and especially crank some weights. Red light therapy. Thank you, A. How are you? What's going on today? I'm a huge fan of red light therapy. We have two cool things. One, I guess, one not so cool thing, but if you have been following me for a while, or if I'm on the tail end of my journey, thank divinity, right? Of having toxic mold poisoning, which threatened to take me out. It's been a journey of, having to get over something long term. But I've been using red light therapy myself for, about a year and a half. So not only do I think it's great, I use it all the time. And I have red lights in a sauna. So I'm doing red light. It's full spectrum and it's also a sauna, which is really amazing. I have to get a bigger and better one because I'm starting to max out on the small one that I have, but it was an affordable way for me to get into that. The cool thing that we're doing is that at Lee Brain and Spine, my husband is implementing a superhuman protocol. And there's Dave Asprey, who is a leader in this area of biohacking. He has protocols like this, but my husband's putting the superhuman protocol using full body red light. So that's going to be cool too, because I'm going to tap into that. So yeah, definitely good stuff. Let's see, can a brain ever be de-escalated after years of abuse? Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that there's been years of abuse because obviously that's not a good thing. So I'm sorry about hearing that. That's a terrible situation that you're in. But here's the answer: the answer is yes. Your brain is stuck in hypervigilant mode. And this happens to so many people. And actually, this will be our segue in 1 second to wrap up with the second thought that I had at the beginning because it comes back to this. But like your brain is stuck in a mode where it never knows when the next bad thing's going to happen. So you have to stay on red alert. So once you get yourself into a situation that there's no more red alerts, and again, with training and time and rewiring, it's not just time, it's time and training. Rewiring your brain into the healthy mode, it can be completely de escalated. So there's so many people who are in an abusive situation and then they can get themselves to not being on red alert. But it goes from being in that massively overstimulated state to training your brain back to healthy arousal so you're not on edge all the time. Okay, so let's segue to that first thought, and then we'll wrap up. Is that the first thought that I had is that someone that I'm working with, and I've heard thousands of people say this, that they are in the middle of a disclosure with their partner about their sexual acting out behaviors that are due to escalation from porn consumption. So when you have a porn habit, and if you're in this position, I want you to think about this food for thought is that porn use can escalate, and it most often does, into other sexual acting out behaviors because your brain needs more dopamine. And I'm not going to mention what those things are, but they basically go all the way up to infidelity and crossing moral boundaries, things you would never do if porn wasn't in the mix, and it made it so your brain needs more and more dopamine. So this person said to me, because they're in the middle of telling their partner about it so that they can be completely free from this stuff once they rewire their brain, is that they thought they were taking that behavior to the grave. The fact that they did those things to the grave. And people have said this to me before when they've scared me. It's the national alert. And so you probably all know we're in national alert. I was trying to get off because the phones are going bonkers. Everybody's phone going bonkers? Scared the bejesus out of me. Everybody got your phones going nuts there? Let's see. Yep, beep. You know it. And my daughter was all excited about the national alert in school. And of course, I have two phones sitting next to me. So it was full blown alert here. So, anyways, when it comes to this, I don't want you to have to take it to the grave. So, it's time to put these behaviors behind so that you can de escalate your brain. You can get your brain back into that optimal mode, even after you've been completely startled by the national beep. Just like that beep startled all of us, especially me, like my system's going to come down now and I'm going to get back to a place of where I know I'm in a safe place. And so the thought was that same person has been jumping at sounds, and their partner was talking about it, that I'm sure they probably just jumped right out of their booties. Actually, this was the thought, is that this gentleman has not jumped out of his booties in the last couple of days because his system's already coming down because the truth is out. He doesn't have to be afraid of being caught anymore. So when the truth will set you free, and it's not like you have to go disclose it, you just have to address and resolve it, and then get into integrity and move into the future of your life in integrity. And I'm going to put the link for my 90-day program up because that's what we do in my 90-day program. Is it's a journey of, and this channel is, designed to be a journey of personal transformation so that you can become the best version of yourself. And I thought it was a really cool comment that, as difficult as it was to be able to share and get all those things out of his brain, because he thought he was going to take the memory of all the behaviors he's had to his grave. And now he can't, but now he gets not to have to for the rest of his life. And this is a young man. So now for the next 50 years, he doesn't have to be on red alert, being afraid he's going to be busted for these things. It's a fresh start. So I hope that you all can use the information here and our time together to create a fresh start for yourself and stay the course in leaving porn behind so that you can reset your brain, get back to feeling safe and secure, and get back to rocking out your best life with your best brain performance pattern. All right. Uh, Siddharth, I didn't answer your question. Sorry, friend. I thought I did, but I don't know if I can find it here quickly, and it's time to wrap up, but maybe next time. So let me just remind you, I'm looking through to see if I can find it, but this thing jumps around on me. Okay, so let me remind you, in November, it's No Porn November. We're going to be back here the first Wednesday of the month at 1:30. We're going to wrap up definitely by 2:30, but we're trying to wrap up by 2:15. Join me for No Porn November. I have a playlist, No Porn November 30-day challenge. So make sure if you haven't done it, or if you have, get back into it day by day, and move yourself through November, because we're going to go No Porn November in November, and then we're going to move into holidays without porn in December. So join me next month. And until then, check out some of those programs if you're interested and inspired. And if not, I'll see you next month. Control your brain or it'll control you. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. Sorry about the jump scare. All right. I'll see you next time. Bye. Bye, everybody. Let's see. Bye. Bye, everybody. Oh, yep. Okay. Bye, everybody. See you next time.